The synthetic bourbon tasted like regret and poor life choices, which made it perfect for Station Kepler 7's most notorious dive bar. Captain Jake Morrison stared into his glass, watching the amber liquid swirl in the artificial gravity, while holographic advertisements for questionable pharmaceuticals flickered overhead. The cantina's atmosphere recyclers wheezed like an asthmatic robot, adding a metallic tang to air already thick with alien pheromones and human desperation. "You look like someone who knows how to handle trouble," said a voice that cut through the ambient noise like a vibro blade through butter. Jake glanced up, expecting another drunk spacer looking to pick a fight or sell him stolen cargo. Instead, he found himself staring at a woman whose elegance seemed wildly out of place in this cesspit of interstellar commerce. She wore a tailored diplomatic coat that probably cost more than Jake's ship, and her dark hair was pulled. The synthetic bourbon tasted like regret and poor life choices, which made it perfect for Station Kepler 7's most notorious dive bar. Captain Jake Morrison stared into his glass, watching the amber liquid swirl in the artificial gravity, while holographic advertisements for questionable pharmaceuticals flickered overhead. The cantina's atmosphere recyclers wheezed like an asthmatic robot, adding a metallic tang to air already thick with alien pheromones and human desperation. "You look like someone who knows how to handle trouble," said a voice that cut through the ambient noise like a vibro blade through butter. Jake glanced up, expecting another drunk spacer looking to pick a fight or sell him stolen cargo. Instead, he found himself staring at a woman whose elegance seemed wildly out of place in this cesspit of interstellar commerce. She wore a tailored diplomatic coat that probably cost more than Jake's ship, and her dark hair was pulled back in a style that screamed, "I have important meetings with senators." The only thing that marked her as non-human were her ears, elongated and gracefully pointed, like someone had taken human features and refined them with artistic precision. "Depends on the trouble," Jake replied, gesturing to the empty stool beside him, "and whether it pays better than my current career trajectory of drinking alone and contemplating my failures." She sat with the fluid grace of someone accustomed to being watched, folding her hands on the bar's grimy surface without apparent concern for her immaculate appearance. "I am Ambassador Lyreley of the Velter Confederation. I require your services, Captain Morrison." Jake's eyebrows climbed toward his hairline. "Well, that's either very good intelligence gathering or very bad luck. I'm guessing it's not coincidence that you found me in the galaxy's armpit of a bar. Your reputation precedes you. Former colonial Marines, decorated veteran of the Proxima conflict, current freelance security specialist with a 97% mission success rate." Her voice carried the measured cadence of someone accustomed to choosing words carefully. "Also, according to my research, you have an unfortunate tendency to drink synthetic alcohol in establishments of questionable hygiene when between contracts." "Hey, the bourbon might be fake, but the regret is genuine," Jake protested, raising his glass in mock salute. "Besides, this place has character. You can practically taste the decades of poor decisions in the air conditioning." Ambassador Lyreley's lips quirked in what might have been amusement. How refreshing to meet someone who maintains humor in the face of professional stagnation. Professional stagnation sounds so much better than washed-up mercenary. "I should update my resume." Jake studied her face, noting the subtle signs of strain beneath her diplomatic composure. "So what kind of trouble are we talking about here? Corporate espionage? Smuggling run? Please tell me it's not another escort the ambassador's spoiled nephew through hostile territory job. The last one tried to livestream our firefight for his social media followers. Nothing so straightforward, I'm afraid. I need someone to protect my daughter during a critical diplomatic mission." Lyreley's composed mask slipped slightly, revealing genuine worry. "The assignment, however, comes with certain, unusual requirements." Jake's professional instincts kicked in despite the alcohol. "Define unusual. Are we talking she has dietary restrictions unusual, or she's secretly a cyborg assassin unusual. Because my rates are very different for those scenarios. My daughter Zara is 19 years old, studying advanced xenobiology and quantum mechanics. She is brilliant, curious, and has absolutely no sense of self-preservation. The ambassador's voice carried the exasperated affection of mothers throughout the galaxy. She is also the first of our people to participate in Earth's cultural exchange program, which makes her a target for certain extremist groups who oppose our alliance. Anti-alien sentiment on Earth. Shocking, Jake deadpanned. Next you'll tell me politicians lie and space pirates have questionable personal hygiene. The death threats are quite specific and well-funded, Lyreley continued, ignoring his sarcasm. Traditional security measures would be too obvious and might compromise the diplomatic mission. Zara needs protection that appears natural. Something in her tone made Jake's skeptical radar ping like a proximity alarm. Natural how exactly? You would pose as her human boyfriend. Jake choked on his synthetic bourbon, coughing until his eyes watered. I'm sorry, did you just say boyfriend? Because that sounds like the setup to either a really bad romantic comedy or a war crime violation of some kind. The age difference is well within acceptable parameters for both our species, Lyreley said with diplomatic precision. You are 32, she is 19. Many human cultures would consider this perfectly normal. Many human cultures also thought reality television was entertainment. That doesn't make it a good idea. Jake wiped his eyes, still processing the absurdity of the proposal. Let me get this straight. You want me to pretend to date your daughter so I can protect her from assassins? Have you considered that this plan might have some glaring flaws? Such as? Well, for starters, I have the romantic appeal of a broken hyperdrive. I'm pretty sure my last girlfriend dumped me for a cargo bot. At least the bot remembered anniversaries and never left dirty socks on the floor. Ambassador Lyreley's diplomatic mask cracked, revealing genuine amusement. Perhaps that is precisely why this arrangement will work. Zara has shown little interest in romantic entanglements with her peers. She finds most young men intellectually unstimulating. Great, so I'm hired for my stunning mediocrity and emotional unavailability. My parents would be so proud. Jake signaled the bartender for another drink, then thought better of it. Assuming I don't die of embarrassment, what makes you think your daughter will go along with this charade? Zara is aware that her safety requires certain precautions. She has agreed to the arrangement, though I suspect she finds the entire situation amusing. Lyreley's expression suggested this was a significant understatement. She has specifically requested that her boyfriend be someone who won't bore her with small talk about weather patterns or attempt to impress her with displays of physical prowess. Well, I definitely qualify on both counts. I find weather boring, and my most impressive physical feat is opening particularly stubborn cargo containers. Jake studied the ambassador's face, looking for hidden agendas. What aren't you telling me? Because in my experience, when a job sounds too weird to be true, it's usually too weird to survive. Lyreley's composure wavered for just a moment. Every other security firm on this station has declined the assignment. They consider it unconventional. Unconventional meaning legally questionable, or unconventional meaning likely to end in spectacular failure and public humiliation. Perhaps both. The ambassador reached into her coat and produced a credit chip that gleamed with the distinctive iridescence of high-denomination currency. Triple your usual fee, plus expenses. All I ask is that you treat Zara as family and never abandon her, regardless of the circumstances. Jake stared at the chip, calculating how much legitimate work he'd need to earn that amount. Family is a strong word for someone you just met. Family is exactly what I mean, Captain Morrison. In our culture, those who prove their dedication to protecting the young are considered bonds beyond mere employment. Lyreley's voice carried undertones he couldn't quite decipher. Do we have an agreement? The credit chip caught the bar's neon lighting, casting prismatic reflections across the grimy surface. Jake thought about his empty ship, his dwindling savings, and the prospect of spending another evening drinking synthetic bourbon while contemplating his career choices. When do I meet her? Jake's first clue that this assignment would test his sanity came when he spotted his supposed girlfriend arguing with a vending machine in perfect Mandarin. The machine, displaying typical artificial intelligence stubbornness, kept responding in what sounded like frustrated beeping. Zara stood with her hands on her hips, her pointed ears twitching with irritation as she delivered what was clearly a scathing critique of the machine's programming ancestry. Having relationship troubles already. Jake approached cautiously, noting how her ears swiveled toward him like biological radar dishes. This primitive commerce automation refuses to dispense my selection despite accepting my currency, Zara replied without turning around. I have explained to it in 17 languages that I require caffeinated beverages for proper cognitive function, yet it persists in its mechanical incompetence. Jake glanced at the vending machine's display, which showed a cheerful message. Sorry, this product contains ingredients not approved for non-human consumption. Please consult your dietary restrictions database. There's your problem. Earth safety protocols assume alien physiology can't handle human caffeine levels. Jake fed his own credits into the machine and selected her drink. Apparently our coffee is considered a controlled substance for off-worlders, like dietary dynamite. Ridiculous. I have consumed caffeine on 47 different worlds without adverse effects. Zara accepted the drink with the enthusiasm of someone reuniting with a long-lost friend. Though I must admit, Terran coffee does produce unusually vivid dreams about mathematical theorems dancing in geometric patterns. That's probably not normal. Jake studied his supposed girlfriend with professional interest. Zara possessed her mother's elegant pointed ears but radiated kinetic energy that made standing still seem physically painful for her. She wore casual earth clothing with the unconscious confidence of someone who'd never doubted her place in the universe, and her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail that somehow made her look both younger and more formidable. Normal is relative when you're discussing interspecies biochemistry, she said, taking a sip that made her ears actually wiggle with pleasure. For instance, did you know that humans are the only species we've encountered who experience existential dread about beverage choices? Most civilizations just drink whatever prevents dehydration and move on with their lives. Hey, coffee philosophy is a proud human tradition. We've built entire cultures around arguing whether espresso is superior to drip brewing. Jake fell into step beside her as they walked through the university campus. Speaking of human traditions, we should probably discuss our cover story before someone asks how we met. Mother suggested we claim you rescued me from pirates, Zara said with suspicious eagerness. I could pretend to swoon dramatically whenever anyone mentions your heroic deeds. Please don't. I have a reputation to maintain, and it doesn't include swooning witnesses. Jake dodged a hovering delivery drone that seemed confused about campus navigation protocols. How about we go with something simpler? We met through mutual friends, discovered shared interests in. What do you like besides caffeinated beverages and arguing with machines? Quantum mechanics, xenobiology, ancient literature, and making humans uncomfortable by asking direct questions about their reproductive habits. Zara's grin revealed slightly pointed canines that somehow made her look more mischievous than threatening. Oh, and I collect vintage Earth music from the 21st century. Apparently your ancestors created something called dubstep, which sounds like mechanical animals having territorial disputes. Those are eclectic interests. Jake tried to imagine explaining their relationship to curious students. Maybe we should focus on the literature angle. That sounds less likely to result in awkward conversations. Boring. I was hoping to scandalize some anthropology students with tales of interspecies romance. Zara bounded up the steps to the xenobiology building with infectious enthusiasm. Did you know that humans are considered unusual? The plasma bolt seared through the air exactly where Zara's head had been 3 seconds earlier, leaving a smoking crater in the lecture hall's smart wall display. Jake's tactical dive had knocked them both behind the podium just as the maintenance worker revealed his true profession by opening fire with military-grade weaponry. "Well, this is exciting," Zara commented with the calm curiosity of someone observing a particularly interesting chemical reaction. "Is this what humans call a date night? Because the adrenaline response is quite stimulating." "This is what humans call people trying to kill you," Jake replied, drawing his sidearm while calculating escape routes. The lecture hall's emergency systems had sealed the exits, trapping them with their would-be assassin. Try to stay behind cover and maybe dial down the scientific commentary. But this is fascinating. The energy signature of that plasma discharge suggests Rigelian manufacture, which means our attacker has access to black market weapons typically reserved for interstellar conflicts. Zara peeked around the podium with dangerous curiosity. "I wonder what the profit margins are on illegal arms trading." Another plasma bolt answered her question by vaporizing a chunk of the wall above their heads. Jake grabbed Zara's arm and pulled her toward the emergency maintenance shaft he'd spotted during his earlier security assessment. "Economics lesson later, survival now," he said, kicking open the access panel. "Can you fit through there?" "Obviously. I'm not built like a typical human male with your species' inefficient muscle mass distribution." Zara squeezed through the opening with fluid grace. "Though I should mention that Velter physiology includes some capabilities your mother probably didn't brief you about." Jake squeezed through after her, grateful for years of military conditioning that kept him flexible despite what Zara charmingly called his inefficient muscle mass. Behind them, their attacker was making creative use of plasma weaponry to redecorate the lecture hall. "What kind of capabilities?" Jake asked as they crawled through the maintenance tunnels, following emergency lighting toward what he hoped was an exit. "Well, for starters, we can see in a much broader light spectrum than humans. Also, our hearing extends into ultrasonic ranges, and we can sense electromagnetic fields." Zara's voice carried the enthusiasm of someone sharing favorite facts. "Oh, and we can discharge bioelectric energy when threatened." Jake stopped crawling so abruptly that Zara bumped into him. "You can what now?" "Bioelectric discharge. Think of it as a biological taser, but more elegant and significantly more powerful." She sounded proud of this revelation. "Most species develop it as a defensive mechanism. Humans are unusual in relying entirely on tool use for protection. And you're just mentioning this now because you never asked. Besides, using it requires physical contact, and I assumed you'd prefer conventional weapons for long-range encounters." Zara's tone suggested she thought this was perfectly reasonable logic. Human males seem particularly sensitive about their combat competence. "I didn't want to wound your ego." The sound of plasma fire intensified behind them, suggesting their pursuer had discovered the access panel. Jake resumed crawling with renewed urgency, while processing the implications of dating someone with built-in electrical weaponry. "Note for future reference, always lead with the superpowers," he said, spotting an exit grate ahead. "Anything else I should know? Can you fly, read minds, turn invisible?" "Don't be silly. Those abilities would violate basic conservation of energy principles," Zara replied with scientific precision. "Though I can metabolize caffeine at approximately 3 times the human rate without adverse effects." "That explains so much about your personality." Jake kicked out the exit grate and helped Zara climb through into what appeared to be a maintenance corridor beneath the main campus. "Okay, we need to reach the safe house your mother arranged. Can you contact her?" Zara pulled out what looked like a standard communication device, but with several additional components that hummed with barely contained energy. Mother, we're experiencing what Jake calls people trying to kill us. Yes, I know you warned me this might happen. No, I haven't electrocuted anyone yet, but the day is young. Jake could hear Ambassador Lyralay's voice through the comm, speaking rapid Velter that sounded like musical mathematics. Zara responded in the same language, occasionally glancing at Jake with expressions that suggested they were discussing him. She's sending extraction coordinates, Zara reported, switching back to English. Also, she wants me to tell you that you're handling this better than the last 3 security specialists. There were 3 others. Jake asked as they moved through the underground corridors, following emergency exit signs toward the surface. The first one quit when I explained Velter courtship rituals involve competitive mathematical problem-solving. The second one had what Mother diplomatically called philosophical differences, with our family's approach to personal boundaries. The third one lasted almost a week before requesting hazard pay for emotional trauma caused by excessive intellectual stimulation. Jake was beginning to understand why Ambassador Lyralay had been so specific about treating Zara as family. What kind of personal boundary issues? Oh, the usual. He was uncomfortable with our practice of sharing meals, living spaces, and detailed discussions about reproductive compatibility. Zara said this with the casual tone others might use to discuss weather. Apparently human males find direct communication about relationship expectations quite threatening. They reached a surface access ladder, and Jake could hear sirens above as campus security responded to the plasma fire incident. Right, so just to clarify our situation. You're a brilliant alien scientist with bioelectric superpowers who thinks humans are emotionally constipated, and I'm supposed to pretend to be your boyfriend while people shoot at us with illegal weapons. That's a remarkably accurate summary, Zara agreed, climbing the ladder with impressive speed. Though I prefer to think of humans as communication challenged rather than emotionally constipated. It sounds more scientific. Jake followed her up, emerging into the controlled chaos of emergency vehicles and confused students. In the distance, smoke rose from the xenobiology building where their lecture had been so dramatically interrupted. There, Zara pointed toward a nondescript delivery vehicle parked among the emergency responders, Mother's extraction team. As they approached the vehicle, Jake noticed its occupants wore the subtle earpieces and watchful expressions of professional security personnel. The rear door opened to reveal Ambassador Lyralay, who looked remarkably composed for someone whose daughter had just survived an assassination attempt. "Captain Morrison," she said as they climbed into the armored interior. "I trust the experience has been educational." "That's one word for it," Jake replied, settling into the vehicle's advanced seating while Zara immediately began examining the communication equipment with technical fascination. "Though I'm starting to think your daughter might be more dangerous than the people trying to kill her." An astute observation, Lyralay smiled with maternal pride. "Zara has always been remarkably capable of defending herself. The question is whether you're prepared to defend her heart as thoroughly as you've defended her life." Jake looked at Zara, who was currently explaining to the driver why his vehicle's energy shielding could be improved with minor modifications to the harmonic frequency generators. Her pointed ears twitched with excitement as she gestured enthusiastically, completely absorbed in the technical discussion. "I'm beginning to think that might be the more dangerous assignment," he admitted, wondering what exactly he'd gotten himself into and why the prospect didn't terrify him as much as it should. 3 weeks after the plasma fire incident, Jake found himself in Ambassador Lyralay's private office, staring at a holographic document that appeared to be written in mathematical poetry. The symbols shifted and glowed with soft blue light, occasionally forming patterns that hurt his brain if he looked too directly at them. "So let me understand this correctly," Jake said, rubbing his temples. "According to Velter law, My continued presence in Zara's life after the assassination attempt constitutes what you're calling a formal courtship declaration. The legal terminology is more complex, but essentially, yes. Ambassador Lyrale sat behind her desk with the satisfied expression of someone whose long-term strategy was finally paying dividends. Your decision to remain with my daughter despite the danger, coupled with your obvious emotional attachment, triggers ancient bonding protocols designed to recognize protective partnerships. But I thought I was just doing my job. Jake protested, though even as he said it, he knew it wasn't entirely true. Somewhere between dodging plasma fire and listening to Zara's enthusiastic lectures about quantum mechanics, his feelings had evolved beyond professional obligation. Were you? Lyrale's pointed ears twitched with amusement. Because my security recordings show you purchased coffee for my daughter 17 times, listened to her explain xenobiology for approximately 43 hours, and voluntarily attended her dissertation defense on comparative analysis of interspecies communication patterns. She needed moral support, and someone had to make sure Brad Williamson didn't try to interrupt her presentation with more territorial posturing. Jake shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Besides, her research was actually fascinating, once she explained why humans use sarcasm as a defense mechanism. Ah yes, her groundbreaking theory that humor serves as emotional armor for species with underdeveloped telepathic abilities. Lyrale's smile suggested she'd heard this conversation before. She's quite proud of that paper. It's been accepted for publication in the Journal of Xenopsychology. But before Jake could respond, Zara burst through the office door with her characteristic kinetic energy, carrying what appeared to be a small fusion reactor, and wearing safety goggles that made her look like an enthusiastic mad scientist. Mother, Jake, I've successfully miniaturized the bioelectric field harmonizer we discussed. She set the device on the desk, where it hummed with barely contained energy. With this, humans can temporarily access Velter sensory capabilities without permanent genetic modification. That's terrifying and amazing, Jake said, studying the device with professional wariness. What exactly does it do? It synchronizes human neural patterns with Velter bioelectromagnetic fields, allowing temporary enhancement of sensory perception and emotional resonance. Zara's explanation sounded like she was discussing the weather. I built it specifically for you, so you can better understand our family bonding rituals. Family bonding rituals. Jake looked between mother and daughter, recognizing the trap closing around him. Why do I feel like I'm about to volunteer for something that will either enlighten me or kill me? Both outcomes remain statistically possible, Zara admitted cheerfully. But the probability of death has decreased to less than 12% since I improved the stabilization matrix. Ambassador Lyrale cleared her throat with diplomatic precision. Captain Morrison, there's something else we need to discuss. The Earth First extremists who targeted Zara were funded by a shadow faction within your own government. Officials who preferred to sabotage First Contact rather than risk sharing galactic influence. Let me guess, Jake said with weary resignation. You want me to help expose them? Already done. Lyrale produced another holographic document with the fluid grace of someone revealing a winning hand. Thanks to the evidence we gathered during the attacks, 3 senators and a defense contractor are currently explaining their actions to very interested investigators. Earth's government has officially apologized and requested expanded diplomatic relations.